There's generally no opportunity for public comment. Members of the public wishing to address the board are welcome to do so during the board's regularly scheduled meetings held twice monthly. First item is the agenda review. Do we have any questions or comments about the agenda? Okay, not seeing any. And I wanted to just let folks know I have a hard out at 11:45 today. So I know that we have a big presentation on 911 emergency communication systems and the consolidation of 911. But I'm hopeful that we can move briskly through the agenda and still allow enough time for the full presentation and then some questions as well. All right, 2026 session update. And do we have Amanda joining us or county manager? Yep, Amanda Rapachuk, management and policy analyst.
Let me confirm if she's been moved to panelist.
There she is. I see her.
Okay.
I see her. Welcome, Amanda.
Hi, thank you for having me. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. Good morning, Chair, members of the board. So the session is moving along very quickly, as we know, and the session deadlines, one recently passed on Monday, and that was the first chamber deadline. So that meant that a bill needed to have passed out of that chamber. And then one that's upcoming is on Friday, the 20th, and that's a post-work session deadline. So that would be a bill in the next chamber, and that had to have been scheduled for a work session. So it doesn't have to have the work session by then, but at least be on the calendar. And again, the exceptions are bills currently in the finance and revenue committees, rules, and then any sort of joint committees, which includes joint ways and means. And then just a quick update on the TLT bill. There was, and this is HB 4148, there was a hearing last Monday on the 9th that we talked about at the last work session. And today there is a work session scheduled for that bill at 3 o'clock. So we will be tuning in to see how that goes. And then other than that, just a quick note that we have a few board letters coming up for your consideration. 3 that I'll be sending you today, and these are support letters for federal funding opportunities, 2 of them having to do with county applications, and 1 a city project. And I just wanted to flag that for you. We have a quick turnaround on these, and that'll be by end of day Friday. So I'll be sending those to you shortly, and then we'll send you a text just to let you know that it's in your inbox for consideration. Do you have any questions for me?
No, thank you, Amanda. I appreciate the update. I really appreciate the session tracker that you've sent to all of us that has it outlined where the status of all of these bills that are high priority, medium priority, low priority that we're following. So this is very helpful to have for all of us to view and to kind of be appraised of where we are in the session. So thank you. Any questions, comments? Okay, great. Thank you, Amanda. Appreciate it. Next is the Fairgrounds Strategic Plan update on page 2, and Gail Henriksen, our Community Development Director. Welcome, Gail.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and good morning, Commissioners. Just a quick update on where we're at with the update of the Fairgrounds 2009 Strategic Plan. And we have worked with the Fair Board since January. We've provided them with a draft report on existing conditions and the facilities inventory, which included a lot of information about maintenance and possible projects and upgrades that might occur. And that was included in your board packet for today's work session. This coming month, we'll be working with the Fair Board on finalizing the public outreach plan. We've been working with our public affairs officer to put that draft together along with some survey questions. The Fair Board's also been busy at work filling out questionnaires for us, identifying peer fairgrounds, competing venues, stakeholders, and capital improvements that they think should be prioritized. And so we have included that information. Moving forward, what we're hoping to do is finalize that existing conditions report in March, begin our stakeholder interviews in March, and complete those by the end of the month. Same with the competing venues as well. We are hoping to hold our first in-person open house sometime in late March or early April, and then having a draft plan ready for review in early May, and then looking at a second in-person open house sometime at the middle to end of May, and then bringing that plan forward for final review and adoption with your board in June. So we're working really hard to stay on that deadline to meet the end of the fiscal year. That's a very quick overview, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Gail. Do we have any questions? A lot of information in the packet there. It's great. And all of those photos of the assets and equipment out there is helpful as well. I know that we've got a few folks. I see Kyle Sharpstein, our fairground manager, is joined us, as well as Abby Goodman, who's the chair of the fair board. I don't know if either of them, actually, I think they're attendees, not panelists, but I don't know if they have anything that they would like to add as well. Could we promote Kyle as a panelist? Welcome, Kyle.
I was muted and my camera was off. Looks like I've got an issue with my camera still. There we go. How are you guys today?
Good. How are you?
Good. Busy.
Do you have anything you'd like to add about the strategic plan update?
I think the process is going along pretty well. There's a lot of information to gather. There's a lot of work to do, and also heavily focused on trying to plan the fair. We're really trying to identify what the next 20 years looks like here, and trying to identify what projects we're going to do and what other tasks and goals that the board has for the facility.
Great.
We've been working to figure out comparable fairgrounds and event centers that we're going to include in our outreach and do comparables on. And then trying to get some additional input from the public that could give us a different look at what we have in mind versus what the people think could be good out here.
That's great. Yeah, thank you, Kyle. And would it be possible to promote Abby Goodman to a panelist too? I'd like to hear from the chair of our fair board if she has anything she'd like to add. Hi, Abby.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, sure can.
Yeah, I don't have anything specific to add. I feel like we're making really good progress, and I think as a team we're able to have some different viewpoints on who we should be talking to, and I think overall it's been going really well, and I think Gail's been a huge help on giving us outlines on how to go through it, and I think just overall we're making great progress on it, and I'm excited to keep going and see what we can accomplish.
Great. Well, that's good to hear. Commissioner Webb has a question.
I do. Even though I've spent a lot of time at different points in the fairground, I would, especially having looked at all the work that's already been done, I wonder if it would be possible for the commissioners, for us to take a little, field trip to the fairgrounds, because there are some places, kind of behind the scenes and 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 things that I don't completely understand in terms of especially equipment needs and things like that. So I just think it would be kind of cool if in the next couple of months we could maybe either individually or to save time, just as a group, go out there and talk about some of the things that all those wonderful photographs pointed out to us.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Webb. Maybe we can coordinate with Kyle and see what a good time to do that would be.
Yeah, either way, if you guys want to schedule a group walkthrough or if you want to come in smaller groups or individuals, let me know and we can put it on the calendar.
Yep.
Thank you.
We might need to break it up just to be coordinate or, make it
Make it work.
easier just to have, some smaller groups go out there and have the tour. It'd be great.
Yeah, I think one of the things to really keep in mind is the facility's basically 30 years old at this point, and we've done what we can with the resources that have been there, but it's becoming an aging building that definitely needs some TLC, and also thinking about the future of it with the constraints that we have on our property being what it is with the wetlands and out of the city limits.
Yeah. Good suggestion, Commissioner Webb. We'll coordinate with Kyle. Anything else you'd like to add? Appreciate the update. I'm glad to hear about the progress, and we'll be monitoring as it goes forward, and certainly looking forward to the outreach into the community and get more ideas about what people want to see out there. But thank you, Chair Goodman and Manager Sharpstein. Commissioner Thompson.
Well, thank you, sir. I just kind of want to poke the hornet's nest. The land use issues at the fairgrounds are so complicated. I mean, there's the whole economic realities, but then the land use issues. I really commend the community development director for engaging and giving us this report and giving the Fair Board some way to engage with it. I wonder if this also belongs on our strategic plan. In my thinking, the fairgrounds are so vitally important, not only for culture and economic development, but also for community resilience, that I'd like to elevate their importance and the amount of attention and resources that are spent on them.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Thompson. I'm sure we can have that discussion when we reconvene on the strategic plan update this year.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you again, both Chair Goodman and Manager Sharpstein, for your leadership. And Gail, thanks again for putting this presentation together. A lot of good information in there. So thank you again.
You're welcome. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the background and options for a consolidated 911 emergency communication system on page 71. And we have both Sheriff Phillips and County Manager Boone that will be presenting on this. Who do we want to start with?
Chair, that'll be me first.
Okay.
I'll hand it over to the sheriff.
County Manager.
All right. Chair Phillips, members of the board, thanks for taking some time to talk about a topic that's obviously been around for many, many years. The sheriff can go through a little bit more of kind of how long this has been going on. But I did want to kind of frame it with the overview that, we have a system right now that has functioned for the various law enforcement fire agencies. And I really want to commend both the city of Astoria and the city of Seaside for their leadership managing these two dispatch centers, public safety answering points, because they have allowed law enforcement and fire to really do the amazing work that they do in the county every day. But consolidation has been a talking point for many, many years. And when we really talk about it, we're not, critiquing the two current providers of the service. We're just critiquing the systems and the benefits of a consolidated system. A consolidated system within dispatch centers has been something that state has really encouraged over many years. Having a consolidated system brings certain efficiencies and effectiveness to the system. And so as we talk about what the options are, I just wanted to remind the board that it's not a county decision on how we move forward alone. It will be a decision that requires the agreement of the cities and of the fire districts too. And so we're really approaching this as, let's have a conversation about what the options are. And that is really prefaced on the notion that, okay, status quo has definitely worked for the county, but this is an opportunity now to really evaluate whether the next 20 years is going to be serviced by the status quo or by another configuration of the 911 communication system. And so certainly the sheriff and I have our opinions about what that next step might be. We will share that with you as we go through the presentation, but I just wanted to just reinforce that this is going to be a team process with our cities and with the fire agencies, and we're going to have to go it together as we assess the various options that could be the next iteration. So with that, I'll kind of hand it over to the sheriff for the start of the presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Don. I think Andrew's running the slides today, so if you want to pull that up, Andrew. All right, and thank you, Chair and members of the board. Happy to talk to you this morning about this. I know that consolidation has been a priority of your board for many years, at least 4 or 5 that really stand out for me. And that's no surprise because as Don mentioned, there's a long history in this county of tackling this challenge or problem, if you will. Going back to 1994, that's when the cities of Seaside and Astoria just got together and first started talking about consolidating. Then in 1999, Heartside Project Management was hired to produce a report that went through all the reasons why a consolidated dispatch would be better for our community. Then 2001, 2002, as a result of House Bill 3977, which required PSAPs to consolidate in counties, because at that time there was more than 50 statewide. So Astoria and Seaside submitted a report to the OEM, which was accepted to consolidate the systems. But the legislature in 2003 actually rescinded the law. So we remained status quo. Then during the 2007 storm, some of the vulnerabilities of our system were really exposed. And in March 24th of 2008, the mayors of all 5 cities sent a letter to your board asking to investigate consolidating the 911 center and siting it at that time, I thought was at Camp Raialea. That resulted in the Jones report, where it described really high level commitment from all the involved parties to getting this accomplished, a consolidation, and for whatever reasons that ultimately didn't occur. Then in 2021, there was the AdCom report, and that really talked about the reasons for a consolidation to meet the state and federal resiliency goals for communication. And then in 2022, there was a Comms Northwest investigation and report that talked about, more specifically the equipment and some of the improvements that could be made to the microwave backhauls that would improve system resilience and stuff. And then at that same time, there was stakeholders from all around the county that looked at creating a consolidation for the dispatch centers under ORS 190. We created bylaws that were widely accepted by the whole work group. And then we also worked through a 190 that would consolidate just the infrastructure. And we created the bylaws and governance documents for that as well. So again, this has been, a long time in discussion, and this is an opportunity to, reflect upon the work that's been done before and make some decisions as a community about what's best to move forward. Next slide, please. So we think of our dispatch center as being the North County Astoria and the South County Seaside 911 centers, providing the public safety answering points. North County, they dispatch for 9 agencies, and South County for 5. We'll go on to the next slide. So the PSAPs are the the 911 centers that handle both the 911 calls and non-emergency, and dispatchers are the true first responders. Police and fire kind of get credit for being the first responders, but the reality is the first person to answer the call for an emergency is going to be a dispatcher, and those dispatchers are often with people in crisis, for a long time before police and fire can even make it there. And the dispatch centers, they do more than just take the calls. They're also responsible for maintaining the communication infrastructure, which includes things like radios and repeaters and microwaves, but also things like site leases for the radio infrastructure and maintaining FCC licenses. And they're also, planning the use of the computer-aided dispatch systems and software and hardware dispatch centers. Keep going. Next slide, please. And I want to point out that all of these slides are taken directly from the reports that have been commissioned over the years. So some of the challenges of a non-consolidated system would be the duplicated or fragmented infrastructure that doesn't necessarily always mesh well together. Some of the challenges we have right now is dispatching for fire between North and South County. We talk about the interoperability and reliability. Reliability talks about 95% coverage when you need to use your radio. During the Comms Northwest study, 10 agencies identified that they regularly have to use their cell phones instead of radios to communicate when on calls. When we talk about planning and governance, I know that Seaside and Astoria definitely work together as partners where they can, but we don't have meetings where all the fire and law enforcement agencies talk about how to best allocate resources and money and build out the system as a whole. And I think that would be definitely needed. And then on staffing, larger agencies, if you lose 2 or 3 people, it's a little bit easier to cover. It doesn't have as big of an impact on operations. And when we talk about funding, and Don will dive into this a little bit more, it would be nice to have more than just subscriber fees and the 911 tax, which is what we currently rely on. When we talk about building out the system for increased resiliency, that costs money, and we'll need some additional resources. Next slide. I already started talking a little bit about the funding. So we'll talk about the staffing. For each 24-hour position, one spot, 24 hours a day, takes 5 staff, and so that includes the relief factor for vacation and sick leave and things like that. And when you don't have enough staff, it's really hard to do well at recruiting and training when you're shorthanded and you don't have the right relief factor, because people have to work overtime and people get worn out. So it'd be really nice to be able to have adequate staffing to provide that relief factor so that people can go to trainings and call in sick and not force overtime every time that happens. I talked a little bit about the governance. It'd be nice. We have 20 stakeholders that are involved in these systems. And it'd be nice to have one structure for everyone to have a voice and how improvements and changes are made to these systems. And if we were able to do that, I think we could find some efficiencies. So next slide. On the efficiencies, we would really like to see faster response times by eliminating transfers. And that goes along with the bottom bullet point, which is the integrated EMS dispatch. Because, for example, say you're somewhere and you come across a medical emergency and you call 911, and just because of where you're standing, your call gets picked up by a cell phone tower in another jurisdiction. And they answer the call 911. What's your emergency? You describe what's going on. You tell them where you're at. Oh, sorry, we're going to transfer you. So you get transferred to another 911 center, and you have to repeat the whole thing, what's going on, where you're at. And then, well, it's a medical emergency. So now you're going to get transferred to medics dispatch. And so you're going to have to repeat the whole thing again. And that isn't the most efficient way. I don't think it's the best customer service for the person who is experiencing that emergency. And then there's also the challenges, say fire is now responding, but the caller is with medics dispatch, so fire can't get updated information about the call they're going to. So it'd be really nice to co-locate for that purpose. Improved communication across the police and fire and EMS kind of goes along with centralized resource management. Certainly NIMS and ICS promote unified commands, joint information centers, working together. Currently, for any type of critical call, there can be challenges when maybe the call is moving, like a pursuit. People are on one frequency out of one dispatch center. It goes out into the county. People are now working on frequencies that aren't repeated throughout the whole county and not moving to, the right frequencies. So those are just kind of some of the challenges. And if we centralized, had standardized procedures for one center, I think that we would be able to improve our service delivery for our citizens and for our user agencies. And I'll turn it over to Don to talk about kind of some next ideas and steps.
Okay, if you go next slide, Andrew, please. So just want to kind of go through, there are really 4 different options when you think about providing 911 dispatch services. We have 3 of those options up here now. Obviously, the 4th option is just status quo. So it's just continue to do what we are doing with both Seaside and Astoria having their standalone dispatch centers. But if you quickly deviate from the status quo, then there are 3 different options, and these are all laid out in statute. So the first option the sheriff mentioned, which is a 190 intergovernmental agreement. This is just basically all the government entities getting together and agreeing to basically create another organization that is created through the 190 framework. There are some strengths to this, meaning it's just a negotiated agreement between all the parties. Doesn't have to go to the ballot, and you can create a lot of different structures under the 190 umbrella regarding governance. Some of the weaknesses of this, though, is that 190 cannot, collect taxes, so it could not have a permanent rate. A 190 they would have to set up their own HR functions, their own legal functions. So you are creating a brand new organization, which is going to cost more than what we have with the 2 dispatch centers, because you have to basically create all that overhead. A 190 cannot own land, and so there's always a challenge. What happens in a lot of these 190s is that the county has to take more of a leadership role regarding finances. Like over in Washington County, the WACA, who's their 911 provider, is a 190. It is just user fee and 911 tax funded. And so when they had to go through a major improvement to their technology backbone, Washington County had to go to the voters for an $80 million general obligation bond. And so a 190 has some real challenges. And I think, counties that are using the 190 are seeing that because you only have limited revenue sources that are funding it. And I think one of the reasons why our system, which has performed well, but one of the areas that is a challenge is on the technology side. It's the infrastructure. And if we're going to bring this system up to the resiliency and the interoperability that I think all the users and the public really need, user fees are not going to be an adequate funding source for that capitalization. We're going to have to introduce additional revenues into the system. I think we've done as much as we can as it's currently structured and funded, and a 190 would not give us the ability to generate additional revenues outside of those two sources, user fees and 911 tax. So there's definitely some challenges with that 190 option. The other two options that the county has provided a little background are those county service districts, and one is a county service district, and the other is just a service district. And I'm just going to explain a little bit about what those differences are. Under the county service district, which would be formed under 198, 451, and 403, those are the ORS statutes, the Board of Commissioners would be the governing body of the county service district. We would have the option when the district is formed to also include a permanent rate. So that's the additional funding source. So if we acknowledge that really user fees aren't going to be sufficient to drive what the improvements of the system, then we need to be sure that we factor in what are those additional revenue options. And so under both the county service district and a service district, there would be access to a permanent rate. Both of the service district and a county service district could also issue debt, which 190 organization cannot. The other benefits are that if it's a county service district, the district would benefit from already having county HR, county budget and finance, all the county infrastructure overhead that would just support the county service district. If you stand up a standalone service district, you would have to create all of those internal functions within this new organization, which are just going to cost more. Part of what our goal is to be as efficient and effective with the resources and to really really invest the resources in those things that make the system more resilient, more interoperable, more secure, reliable. And so as you go through this, another factor is with the county service district, it's the board. With a service district, you would have 5 independently elected officials who would be governing the 911 system. I think that, when you have special districts, as we all know, because we deal with special districts a lot, is that having the 5 independently elected board members that may or may not have any experience in 911 or any expertise in governance of a public entity can be a challenge and a little bit less reliable than if it was a county service district that would benefit from the Board of Commissioners, from all the internal services that the county provides, as well as the framework of having users be able to fully participate in the governance of this entity, whether it's a county service district or a service district. So as we look at this, the sheriff mentioned that we were looking at a 190 because it's just a more flexible option. But 190 is not going to move the needle on actually funding the improvements that need to be made to the system. So then we quickly went to the 2 service district options. And then I think for the county, we prefer at a staff level and with the sheriff, we prefer the county service district option because it gives you all the benefits of a service district, but you get to plug into all the internal components of the county organization, which are very strong. And you get to benefit from a Board of Commissioners that are in the business of supporting emergency response through the sheriff's office and through EMS. So I think that would align governance with the actual delivery of the service, which is important. So just to give your board a little bit of a sense of where we are, we've had some very broad discussions with the city managers, some of the fire agencies. The sheriff was involved with the 190 discussion, which included a lot of different first responding organizations. Obviously, if we create a service district or county service district, we have some really, fundamental challenges to address, which would include, okay, where do you locate a combined 911 dispatch center? We have some ideas about that, but it's still, in early concept mode. You have the issues about transferring employees between agencies and just standing up a brand new organization. So there's a lot of complexities that go with this, and a lot of it's driven by statutory requirements. So if you could go to the next slide, Andrew, please. So this is just a sample of what a process might look like, and I know it's pretty small. I apologize. It's in your packet too. It might be easier to access, but this is just a sample of what a process would be if the desire was to move forward with the process that would get onto the November ballot. So there are some statutory requirements about the timing of these kinds of initiatives, and even years is where they fit. And so if there was an agreement with the cities, because we would need the cities to approve resolutions that this is the direction that they would like to go, at least in entertaining the question with the voters and with the special districts, fire districts. If that was done, then this is kind of a calendar we would be using to get to a November election date. So a lot of activity in March, April, and May that would lead to public hearings and approval by the board to put something on the ballot. And so the boundaries of this special district, the preferred boundaries would be the entire county, which means we have an agreement from all the service providers and all the cities that this was the path forward. Because anything less than that isn't going to get us to the goal of a consolidated system. And so this is just a sample. If for some reason the cities and the fire districts don't feel comfortable with moving this aggressively, then obviously this could apply to 2028 as well. But we only have certain windows that we can really access the ballot for these types of endeavors. So we do have a meeting scheduled with the elected officials upcoming. This will be what the topic is. We just wanted to have a conversation with your board before that so we could answer any questions that you might have regarding, the opportunity statement or what the options are. But no matter how you look at this, it's a big lift for the community, for the providers. Obviously, if it was a county service district option for the county, I think it's definitely worth, pursuing, but it is going to be a lot of work, and we're going to have to do a lot of interface with our partners to get this done. So anyhow, I'll leave it there, Chair, and happy to answer any questions. The Sheriff, I'll answer any questions.
Yeah, thank you, County Manager, and thank you, Sheriff. And the Sheriff outlined 30 years of this, that we've been trying to do something about the 911 system and the consolidation and the advantages to doing so. You said that, I know we're going to have the March 12th meeting with all the cities, but we would need to have a governing body resolutions of support by March 20th. Is that in order to, and that would be everyone?
Well, so Chair, just to be a little transparent about the schedules, that's just one sample. So
okay.
So there is flexibility.
There's flexibility there. Okay.
Yeah, so we would be moving those out until probably early April. If we can get agreement from the cities that this is the path, we would provide them a sample resolution, and then they would approve that at one of their governing body meetings, and then we would ultimately file that as we file for the ballot.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you, Don. Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you. Leaping into this one, I mean, this is such a long term, this is life threatening. life-threatening for not only the consumers of the system, but for the first responders who provide the services associated with the system. I mean, we've been talking about this. When I was with Portland back in the 80s, Portland and Multnomah County had the same problem. This is widespread, long-term, difficult. I mean, I'd like to see a fiscal note, number one. I'd like to know the service impacts in District 5, because, you know, we've got that jog where the southern half of Cove Beach that goes into Tillamook County is part of our Clatsop County Service District, Cannon Beach Fire, and up along, you know, the Nehalem comes up in another part of District 5. So I'd like to know about the service coverage areas and what happens with those little elements. But here's the thing. Taxpayers are frustrated and frightened. They don't want to approve more money. On the other hand, this is a bad problem that will only get worse if we continue to put it off. Where are the fire chiefs in this? Because I see them as critical. Every time I've talked to them, and I've been talking to them for about 20 years, what they say to me is, Leanne, just get us some money. We know what to do with it. Just get us some money. So my sense is the system needs more resources. It would benefit from the proposal that's favored of a county service district. There's no doubt about it. But the trade-off between improved public safety for the providers and the consumers is balanced against the reluctance of taxpayers to allow more tapping into their pocketbooks. And I'm concerned that the chiefs are on board with the fact that their needs will be adequately considered as a county service district, because we put their lives at risk as they're protecting our lives. So I want to make sure that both police and fire and all of the public safety folks really feel comfortable with this. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Thompson.
Chair Quillen, members of the board, Commissioner Thompson, what I would say is that, you know, fire chiefs are aware of what the conversation is. What I do want to really frame, though, is that it's not the county pushing an agenda. It's us just trying to facilitate a conversation between all the different public safety entities and the cities about what are the options. What everybody has to really agree to first is that the current approach to providing 911 communication services through two PSAPs, through two dispatch centers, you know, has some challenges that could be addressed through a different means. And so that's what the first question is the problem substantial enough to really entertain other solutions? What I will say is that, you know, is that the biggest issue is that someone's going to have to pay for what the system needs if the system's going to be truly resilient and truly functional moving forward. And so it's going to take additional resources no matter what. User fees are really going to be strained because general fund, all the user fees come from general fund budgets from these agencies. And so as general funds get tight, there's not going to be the capacity to see dispatch fees go up 20%, 30% to deal with all of the actual costs. So, you know, I think the sheriff, in my view, is yes, absolutely, all the entities have to be on board and supportive, which that's the whole process is premised on that we can't move forward without them. But it's also premised on the fact that if we're going to do something different, we have to do it in a way that actually moves the needle. Because, you know, rearranging what we're doing, if we can't really get to funding this at a level that for the next 30 years, the residents, the first responders can have confidence in the system, then I would argue probably status quo is probably as good as we can do. I think that the good news is there are options, and I think it's going to take, a really good, public information campaign to inform folks about why this is important and why status quo is not sufficient. But, generally speaking, I think fire are very cognizant and supportive of looking at ways to improve the system. I think the cities are too. It's just working with them to come to the right answer. So, thank you.
Commissioner Thompson.
Just a quick note. We have enough trouble trying to get people to run for the positions on the Diking districts, for example. So having to go out for a volunteer board to head these things up just seems like asking for trouble. And I appreciate the points raised by the county manager and the sheriff. I agree with them. If we have to tell the truth about what do we need and what does it really cost and what's the benefit to everybody involved, because that's the argument. And I'm happy to participate in the public relations campaign for that because I'm a firm supporter. Thank you.
And Chair Aquila, Commissioners, if I can also just mention, I should have mentioned it earlier, is the county under the leadership of the sheriff is working on a financial feasibility statement, which is part of the requirement. We haven't, we're still working on finalizing it, but partly because we want to have this broader conversation with all of our partners about the problem statement or the opportunity statement and of the options before we fall into working too hard on implementing one of those options. So we would still like everybody to galvanize over one of the options and then figure out how to move forward. So we are inviting the fire chiefs to the all electeds meeting just so they can be there. And I'm talking about the rural fire chiefs. And then obviously the cities will also be there. So.
Yeah. Thank you, County Manager. Commissioner Webb.
Thank you. I sit as the commission's representative on the ambulance service committee, and we certainly hear a great deal of complaints from medics and from the fire folks about the present system. And I hope there's a way that in a public comment period or effort that we would be doing, I certainly would love to hear from those people, because one of the things that we do, of course, is to track response times, and which are as we all know, an integral part of performance measurement in virtually everything we do. So hearing from these folks, one of the issues that the committee is addressing right now is the coverage areas that I think must have been done by a couple of drunk people at the Legion, because they make absolutely no sense in terms of response times. As we're all painfully familiar with, we have a road system in this county that no city planner would ever okay. It's virtually the same as it was before the settlement of Europeans here. The road system has not changed. And the Coast Range, of course, presents a huge detriment to fast movement from one place to another when human lives are at stake. So I hope that the other issue I wanted to mention is that I hope that this system will also address long-term major resilience issues, which, if we are going to address our board strategy, I don't think this county is putting enough effort into long-term resilience. and short-term resilience of a catastrophic nature. So I hope that those considerations will be a part of the deliberations and the choices that are finally made. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Webb. We might have somebody from the Legion providing public comment at our next meeting. I do want to also echo, though, what you said, Commissioner Webb. You know, telling the stories is so very important. I think we've all been privy to a lot of this in our positions as either county commissioners or other, you know, elected position. But a lot of folks in the public don't know. They probably haven't heard about the system and the failures. So it will be so important kind of describing those, getting public comment from those that have experienced that out in the field, and hearing the stories from dispatch and from first responders. That will be a very, very integral part of this. Sheriff.
Oh yeah, if I could just add, I want to say that all the people that use this system, the firefighters and the law enforcement officers and the ambulance drivers, they work together fantastically at our level. And we work through the challenges that our system presents us. We find a way to get it done. So yeah, there's some challenges. There's some things that we'd all like to see improved. But I just want to say that you know, on the line level, people do a fantastic job with resources we have. But there is opportunity. I mean, this system is owned by 4 or 5 different entities, and who would want to own a car where someone owns the tires, someone else owns the engine, someone else owns the seats and the cruise control, someone else owns the radio, you know, and that's kind of some of the challenges that we're wrestling with.
Yeah, thank you, Sheriff. That's a good analogy right there. Yeah. Any other comments, questions? I think county manager's point too is that we're not driving this. This is going to take, it's going to need everybody to buy into it. And that's why this outreach is important to our cities, to our rural fire districts, and to get their support for what the right solution is. Because I think, you know, most of us acknowledge that something has to happen. We need to make this improvement. It needs to be something that's long lasting. Anything else? County manager, sheriff, anything you'd like to add? Okay.
No, Chair, I mean, just to kind of just really quickly, we are looking at the EMS system too. There'll be an EMS assessment component that'll be kind of parallel to some of the efforts on the 911 consolidation, because they are, you know, interrelated systems. And the sheriff and I did have a conversation with medics yesterday. And, you know, we are looking at ways that we can provide efficiencies with a consolidated dispatch that would include medics, EMS. So there's a lot of opportunities, I think, and we're not going to be able to fully do all the architecture to it, but I think we can have a really clear sense of what the direction is and then work through all the details. Because to the sheriff's point, we have a history of working through all the details. And some of those details are going to happen later. Where we're at right now is the macro conversation about do we want to pursue another option for how we configure the delivery of the service? If the answer is yes, then it's what option do you prefer pursuing? And then pursue that option. That's the macro. And then the micro level is all the details that the sheriff, myself, the cities, the fire districts will be working through to actually implement that. And so, you know, we're at the macro stage now, but it's very hard to keep the micro out of the conversation. But I think the macro is the first question that we have to answer, and then we'll get into the micro once we answer that question. So, and that's what the 12th is about, is answering the macro question.
Thank you, County Manager. I assume part of that micro question is about the 1.03 million in federal funding, because we don't know exactly how that's going to be applied, correct, at this time, or do we know?
So I think the sheriff and I have talked about that, and what we would do is obviously that 1.03 would be used to improve the infrastructure. And we would have one of our consultants help us to really evaluate what are the biggest bangs for the buck and what should come first so that we can build off of that investment. And so I think that is where we will start. And that would happen no matter what happens with the consolidation question.
Yeah, thank you, County Manager. All right. Anything else? All right. Appreciate all the work that's gone into this and all of the legwork in advance to reach out to our emergency responders, rural fire districts, and cities. And again, we'll have our all electeds meeting on March 12th and discuss further. We don't have anything else on our agenda. So we will go ahead and adjourn for Wednesday. I hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Thank you.